How are you guys doing? Today is Sunday, November 14th, 2021. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review the Elite matchups and performances that took place yesterday on Saturday, November 13th, 2021. Taking a look at where we are in the calendar year with no more baseball left in the year, there is a good amount going on with football. In terms of college, yesterday was the 11th Saturday of the season as the college football season is just about wrapping up. 2 more weeks after this one. In the NFL, today will be the 10th Sunday of the season, and there's about 2 more months in the NFL season. Taking a look at what's going on with basketball, the NBA is about a month in, and college basketball is about a week in, and then internationally, taking a look at soccer, they're still in the midst of their international break. First, starting off with college football, looking at the number 1 team in the nation, how they fared yesterday, the Georgia Bulldogs went to Tennessee to face off against the Volunteers. The Bulldogs would end up beating Tennessee 41-17 after they outscored the Vols 24-10 in the first half, and they outscored Tennessee 17-7 in the second half. The first-ranked Bulldogs were led by their starting quarterback, Stetson Bennett. He threw for 213 yards and a touchdown. Their leading rusher, James Cook, had 10 carries for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. He had 3 receptions for 43 yards and a touchdown in the air. That's 147 total yards of offense and 3 touchdowns. Their second leading rusher, Zamir White, had 55 yards on the ground and 3 yards through the air. That's 55 total yards of offense. Georgia's leading tackler was Nakobe Dean. He would finish with 11 tackles as he had a sack. Their second leading tackler, Channing Tindall, had 8 tackles on the day as he had 3 of the team's 6 sacks. And then Darion Kendrick would finish with the team's only interception as he would finish with 6 total tackles along with that interception. With this win, the first-ranked Georgia Bulldogs are 1-0. They are 8-0 in the SEC as of right now. And with this loss, the unranked Tennessee Volunteers are 5-5. They are 3-4 in the SEC. Looking at the second best team in the nation, the Alabama Crimson Tide hosted the unranked New Mexico State Aggies. Alabama would end up winning this one 59-3 after outscoring New Mexico State 49-3 in the first half. The Alabama Crimson Tide were led by their freshman starting quarterback, Bryce Young. He threw for 270 yards, and he also had 5 touchdowns on the day through the air. He had 7 yards on the ground, giving him 277 total yards of offense. Alabama's leading rusher was Brian Robinson Jr. He had 9 carries for 99 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. He had 5 receptions for 36 yards through the air. That's 135 yards of offense and 2 touchdowns for him on the day. Alabama's second leading rusher, Trey Sanders, had 12 carries for 66 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Alabama's leading receiver, Jamison Williams, had 6 receptions for 158 yards and 3 of the team's 5 receiving touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Jalen Armour-Davis and Christian Harris and Brian Branch each had 6 tackles, which led the team. Will Anderson Jr. had 2 tackles for Alabama as both of his tackles were sacks as the team would combine for 7 of them. With this win, the second-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide are now 9-1. They are 6-0 at home officially. And with this loss, the New Mexico State Aggies, unranked, are now 1-9 this season. Looking at the third-ranked team in the nation, the Oregon Ducks hosted the unranked Washington State Cougars. Oregon would end up beating Washington State 38-24 after outscoring Washington State 24-10 in the second half. The third-ranked Oregon Ducks were led by their starting quarterback, Anthony Brown. He threw for 135 yards and a touchdown. He was also the Ducks' leading rusher as he had 17 carries for 123 yards and a touchdown. That would combine for 258 total yards of offense and 2 touchdowns. Their second leading rusher, Byron Cardwell, had 9 carries for 98 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their third leading rusher, Travis Dye, had 18 carries for 88 yards and a touchdown, as he also had 6 receptions for 25 yards and another touchdown. He had 113 total yards of offense and 2 touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Verone McKinley III would finish with 8 tackles. Kayvon Thibodeau, their second leading tackler, had 6 tackles, and he also had 2 sacks. two of the team's three. Brian Addison and Verone McKinney III would each finish with an interception, as Verone McKinney was also the team's leading tackler. With this win, the third-ranked Oregon Ducks are now 9-1. They are 6-1 in the Pac-12. With this loss, the unranked Washington Cougars are now 5-5. They are now 4-3 in the Pac-12. Taking a look at what's going on with the fourth-ranked team in the nation, the Ohio State Buckeyes hosted the 19th-ranked Purdue Boilermakers. Ohio State would beat Purdue 59-31 after outscoring them 45-17 in the first half. And then both teams would be even at 14 in the second half. The fourth-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes would be led by their starting quarterback, freshman C.J. Stroud. He threw for 361 yards and 5 touchdowns. Ohio State's leading rusher, Mayan Williams, had 14 carries for 117 yards. He also had 3 receiving yards, so that's 120 yards of offense for Williams. Their second leading rusher, Travion Henderson, had 13 carries for 98 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 4 receiving yards, so he had 102 total yards of offense to go with his 2 touchdowns. Their third leading rusher, Garrett Wilson, had 1 carry for 51 yards, as he would go on to have a touchdown for himself. Ohio State's leading receiver, Jackson Smith-Njigba, would finish with 9 receptions for 139 yards as he had a touchdown. Garrett Wilson had 10 receptions for 126 yards as he had 3 receiving touchdowns. Chris Olave had 9 receptions for 85 yards as he had a touchdown as well. On the defensive side of the ball, Denzel Burke finished with 11 tackles. And on the Purdue Boilermakers side, on the losing end, the 19th ranked side was led by their starting quarterback, Aiden O'Connell. He would throw for 390 yards and 4 touchdowns. Purdue's leading receiver, David Bell, had 11 receptions for 103 yards. Milton Wright would have 7 receptions for 98 yards and a touchdown. Jackson Anthrop had 7 receptions for 66 yards and 2 of the team's 4 receptions. Purdue was led in tackles by Jalen Alexander as he had 10 of them. With this win, Ohio State, fourth-ranked Ohio State, is now 9-1 as they are 7-0 in the Big Ten. With this loss, the 19th-ranked Purdue Boilermakers are now 6-4. They are officially 4-3 in the Big Ten. Taking a look at what's now going on with the 6th-ranked team in the nation, the Michigan Wolverines went to Pennsylvania to face off against Penn State. They were able to beat the Nittany Lions 21-17. They outscored Penn State 7-6 in the first half, and then they outscored them 14-11 in the second half. The 6th-ranked Wolverines were led by their starting quarterback, Cade McNamara. He threw for 217 yards and 3 touchdowns. Their leading carrier was Hassan Haskins. He had 31 carries for 156 yards. Their leading receiver, Eric Ali, had 4 receptions for 64 yards and a touchdown. Their 4th leading receiver, Roman Wilson, had 3 receptions for 31 yards as he had the other 2 receiving touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball for Michigan, Junior Colson was the team leading tackler. He had 12 tackles for the day and he had half of a sack. Josh Ross, their second leading tackler, would have 11. Their third leading tackler, Aiden Hutchinson, had 7 tackles on the day and he also had 3 sacks to go along with it. David Ojabo would have 4 tackles as he had 2 sacks. The team would combine for 7 sacks on the day. With this win, the 6th-ranked Michigan Wolverines are now 9-1. They are 6-1 in the Big Ten. With this loss, the unranked Penn State Nittany Lions are now 6-4. They are now officially 3-4 in the Big Ten. Looking at the 7th-ranked team who comes from within the same state, the Michigan State Spartans hosted the unranked Maryland Terrapins, and they were able to beat Tua's younger brother 40-21. Michigan State outscored Maryland 27-14 in the first half, and they outscored them 13-7 in the second. The Spartans were led by Peyton Thorne at quarterback. He threw for 287 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. He also ran for an additional 4 yards. That's 291 yards of offense for Thorne. Michigan State's leading rusher was Kenneth Walker III. He had 30 carries for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 2 receptions for 29 yards as well. That would be 172 total yards of offense for him. Their leading receiver was Jaden Reed. He had 8 receptions for 144 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their second leading receiver, Montorie Foster, only had 1 reception for 52 yards as he had a receiving touchdown as well. On the defensive side of the ball, Xavier Henderson, Darius Snow, and Marquis Lowry would each finish with 7 tackles, leading the team. Xavier Henderson had a sack for himself. And then Noah Harvey would have the team's only interception, as Noah Harvey would have 5 tackles and a sack as well to go with his name. With this win, the 7th-ranked Michigan State Spartans are now 9-1. They are 6-1 in the Big Ten. With this loss, the unranked Maryland Terrapins are now officially 5-5. They are now 2-5 in the Big Ten as things stand. Looking at the 8th-ranked team in the nation, the Oklahoma Sooners faced off against the Baylor Bears in Waco. Baylor would end up beating the Sooners 27-14. Both teams were tied at 7 at halftime. The Baylor Bears outscored Oklahoma 20-7 in the second half in order to pick up this win. On the losing end of this matchup, the 8th-ranked Oklahoma Sooners were led by their starting quarterback, Caleb Williams. He threw for 142 yards and 2 interceptions. He ran for 17 yards and picked up his only interception on the ground, or his only touchdown, on the ground. That would be a total of 159 yards. Oklahoma's leading rusher, Kennedy Brooks, had 14 carries for 55 yards and a touchdown. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the Sooners' leading tackler would end up being Brian Asamoah. He had 10 tackles on the day. Delaren Turner-Yell would have the team's only interception. And on the winning side of this matchup, the Baylor Bears were led by their starting quarterback, Jerry Bohannon. Bohannon would throw for 117 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. He would also carry the ball 9 times for 107 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns on the ground. That would be 224 total yards of offense to go along with the 3 touchdowns that Baylor would need to win the game. Their leading rusher was Abram Smith, though. He had 20 carries for 148 yards on the day. Their leading receiver, Tyquan Thornton, had 4 receptions for 41 yards as he had a touchdown. Baylor was led in tackles by Terrell Bernard as he had 9 tackles and he had 2 of the team's 5 sacks. Kalen Barnes and Al Walcott would have the team's 2 interceptions. With this win, the 13th-ranked Baylor Bears are now 8-2. They are now 5-2 in the Big 12. With this loss, the 8th-ranked Oklahoma Sooners are now 9-1, as they are now 6-1 in the Big 12 as things currently stand. Taking a look at the 9th-ranked team in the nation, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish went to Virginia to face off against the Virginia Cavaliers. Notre Dame was able to beat Virginia 28-3 as they outscored Virginia 21-0 in the first half and 7-3 in the second half. The Fighting Irish were led by their starting quarterback, Jack Cohn. He threw for 132 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. He had 7 yards on the ground. That would be 139 total yards of offense. Their leading carrier, Kyron Williams, had 14 carries for 70 yards and a touchdown. He had 2 receptions for 15 yards, as that would end up being 85 yards for the day for him in total. Notre Dame's leading receiver, Michael Mayer, had 7 receptions for 84 yards and a touchdown. Their leading tackler, Bo Bauer, had 9 tackles and he also had a sack and a half on the day. Riley Mills had 4 tackles and 2 sacks on the day. Notre Dame would combine for 7 sacks total. DJ Brown and Ramon Henderson would have the team's 2 interceptions. With this win, the 9th-ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish are now 9-1. With this loss, the unranked Virginia Cavaliers are now 6-4. Taking a look at what's going on with the 10th-ranked team in the nation, the Oklahoma State Cowboys hosted the unranked TCU Horned Frogs, and the Oklahoma State Cowboys will pull off a 63-17 win, outscoring TCU 28-3 in the first half and 35-14 in the second half. Oklahoma State was led by their starting quarterback, Spencer Sanders. Spencer Sanders threw for 235 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for 53 yards. That would be 288 total yards of offense for Sanders. Their leading carrier, Dominic Richardson, had 12 carries for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their second leading carrier, Jalen Warren, would finish with 17 carries for 113 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. He had 7 receiving yards, so that's 120 total yards of offense to go along with his 3 touchdowns. Their third leading carrier, Jaden Nixon, had 3 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown. Their fourth leading carrier would have Desmond Jackson would have 15 carries for 68 yards as he had 2 touchdowns as 8 of Oklahoma State's 9 touchdowns came on the ground. Through the air, their leading receiver was Blaine Green. He had 3 receptions for 80 yards and a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Devin Harper had 7 tackles, which would lead the team. Cameron Farrar would have 2 tackles as he would have 1.5 sacks. With this win, the 10th ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys are 9-1. They are 6-1 in the Big 12. With this loss, the unranked TCU Horned Frogs are now 4-6. They are now 2-5 in the Big 12. Taking a look at what's going on with the 11th ranked team in the nation, the Texas A&M Aggies went to Mississippi to face off against the Rebels, and the Rebels would pull off the home win, beating the Aggies 29-19. Ole Miss would shut out Texas A&M in the first half, leading it 15-0 at the half, and then Texas A&M would outscore Ole Miss 19-14 in the second half, but it wouldn't be enough. On the losing end, the 11th ranked Aggies were led by their starting quarterback, Zach Calzada. He threw for 237 yards and 2 interceptions. Texas A&M's leading carrier was Devin Akane. He finished with 12 carries for 110 yards as he also had 2 touchdowns on the ground. Texas A&M's leading receiver was Aeneas Smith as he had 5 receptions for 77 yards. Their leading tackler was Damani Richardson as he had 13. Edgerrin Cooper and Antonio Johnson would each have 11 tackles, and Leon O'Neal Jr. would have 10 of them. On the winning side of this matchup, the 15th ranked Ole Miss Rebels were led by their starting quarterback, Matt Corral. He threw for 247 yards and a touchdown. Their leading carrier was Jerrion Early as he had 24 carries for 152 yards. Their third leading carrier, Snoop Connor, had 11 carries for 55 yards as he had a touchdown. Ely also had 34 yards through the air, so that was 186 total yards of offense for him. On the defensive side of the ball for Ole Miss, their leading tackler was Deanne Leonard. He finished with 9 tackles on the day, and A.J. Finley would finish with a 52-yard pick 6 to go along with his 8 tackles for the day. The other interception for Ole Miss went to Ashanti Sistrunk. With this win, the 15th-ranked Ole Miss Rebels are 8-2. They are 4-2 in the SEC. With this loss, the 11th-ranked Texas A&M Aggies are now 7-3. They are now 4-3 in the SEC. Taking a look at what's going on now with the 12th ranked team in the nation, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons hosted their in-state rivals, the 16th ranked North Carolina State Wolfpack. Wake Forest would pull off a 45-42 win. They would narrowly outscore NC State 24-20 in the first half, and NC State outscored Wake Forest 22-21 in the second half. It would just be close enough, and this game would come down to the very end, essentially, as Wake Forest would have to put themselves up by 10. North Carolina State would put themselves within 3 with a minute left, but then Wake Forest would not give North Carolina State a path to win the game. On the losing end of this matchup, the 16th ranked Wolfpack were led by their starting quarterback, Devin Leary. He threw for 408 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Their leading receiver, Emeka Emezie, finished with 10 receptions for 133 yards as he had 2 receiving touchdowns. Devin Carter had 7 receptions for 132 yards as he had 2 touchdowns as well. On the defensive side of the ball, Tanner Ingle had 9 tackles, leading the Wolfpack. And then the team would have 3 interceptions from Shaheem Battle, Derek Pitts Jr., and Tyler Baker-Williams. On the winning side of this matchup, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons were led by their starting quarterback, Sam Hartman. He threw for 290 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. He also ran for 43 yards and a touchdown. That's 333 total yards of offense and 4 touchdowns that he is responsible for. And of course, 3 turnovers. Wake Forest's leading rusher, Justice Ellison, had 17 carries for 56 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 4 yards through the air and an additional touchdown, so that's 60 yards of offense and 3 touchdowns specifically for him. Wake Forest leading receiver, A.T. Perry, had 5 receptions for 73 yards, as he had one of the team's 3 receiving touchdowns. Wake Forest leading tacklers were Jasir Taylor and Zion Keith, as they both had 7 tackles for the day. And Jasheen Davis would finish with 3 tackles for Wake Forest, as he had a sack and a half. And the team's 2 interceptions went to J.J. Roberts and Nick Anderson. With this win, the 12th ranked Wake Forest Demon Deacons are now 9-1. They are 6-0 in the ACC at this very moment. With this loss, the 16th ranked North Carolina State Wolfpack are now 7-3. They are now officially 4-2 in the ACC. Taking a look now at what's going on with the 17th ranked team in the nation, the Auburn Tigers hosted the unranked Mississippi State Bulldogs, and Mississippi State would pull off the upset, beating the ranked Auburn Tigers 43-34. Auburn outscored Mississippi State 28-10 in the first half, and Mississippi State would turn around, outscoring Auburn 33-6 in the second half to come back from behind. They would take the lead off of a touchdown in the top or at the beginning of the fourth quarter, and then they would virtually hold that lead and run it through the end of the game to basically destroy Tiger fans' dreams and hopes. On the losing end of this matchup, the 17th ranked Auburn Tigers were led by their starting quarterback, Bo Nix. He threw for 377 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their leading rusher was Javarius Johnson. He only had 1 carry for 57 yards and a touchdown. Their second leading rusher, Tank Bigsby, had 16 carries for 41 yards and 2 touchdowns. Through the air, their leading receiver was Kobe Hudson, as he had 8 receptions for 107 yards and a touchdown. Their second leading receiver was their leading rusher, Javarius Johnson, as he had 4 receptions for 102 yards. He would have a total of 159 total yards from scrimmage. Their third leading receiver, Shedrick Jackson, had 3 receptions for 72 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, Zacoby McClain had 13 total tackles, leading the team. Chandler Wooten had 10 for himself. And then on the winning side of this matchup for the unranked Mississippi State Bulldogs, their starting quarterback, Will Rogers, would throw for 415 yards and 6 touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Dylan Johnson, finished with 8 carries for 62 yards on the day. Jaden Wally finished with 7 receptions for 87 yards. Their second leading receiver, Malik Heath, had 5 receptions for 74 yards and a touchdown. Their third leading receiver, Makai Polk, had 8 receptions for 61 yards, as he had 2 touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Aaron Brule had 7 tackles, leading the team. With this win, the unranked Mississippi State Bulldogs are 6-4, as they are now 4-3 in the SEC. With this loss, the 17th ranked Auburn Tigers are now also 6-4, as they are now 3-3 in the SEC at this very moment in time. Now, taking a look at what's going on with the 18th ranked team in the nation, the Wisconsin Badgers hosted the unranked Northwestern Wildcats. Wisconsin would pull off a 35-7 win after they shut out Northwestern 21-0 in the first half, and then they would outscore Northwestern 14-7 in the second half, as Northwestern's only touchdown was the final touchdown of the game. The 18th ranked Badgers were led by their starting quarterback, Graham Mertz. He threw for 216 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Their leading carrier, Braylon Allen, had 25 carries for 173 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also had 1 reception for 16 yards, so that's 189 total yards of offense for him. Wisconsin's leading tackler was Leo Chenal, as he had 14 tackles and a sack for the day. Their second leading tackler, Jack Sanborn, had 10 tackles as well. And on the through the air, they had four interceptions from they had an interception from John Torchio, Caesar Williams, Jordan Turner, and Dean Ingram. With this win, the 18th ranked Wisconsin Badgers are 7-3. They are 5-2 in the Big Ten. With this loss, the unranked Northwestern Wildcats are now 3-7. They are officially 1-6 in the Big Ten as things currently stand. Taking a look at what's going on with the 20th ranked team in the nation, staying in the Big Ten, the Iowa Hawkeyes hosted the unranked Minnesota Golden Gophers. After the Gophers outscored Iowa 13-10 in the first half, Iowa would outscore Minnesota 17-9 in the second half to beat them 27-22. The Iowa Hawkeyes were led by their starting quarterback, Alex Padilla. He threw for 206 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 4 carries for 3 yards and a touchdown, so that's 209 total yards and 3 touchdowns for Padilla. Probably the 3 touchdowns that Iowa was responsible for. Their leading carrier, Tyler Goodson, had 18 carries for 59 yards on the day. He also had 4 yards through the air, so that's 63 total yards of offense. Iowa's leading receiver, Charlie Jones, had 2 receptions for 106 yards as he had a receiving touchdown on the day. Iowa's leading tackler was Jack Campbell. He had 17 tackles. Their second leading, Matt Hankins and Zach Van Valkenburg each had 10 tackles, tied for second on the team. Van Valkenburg had a sack as well for himself. With this win, the 20th ranked Iowa Hawkeyes are now 8-2. They are 5-2 in the Big Ten. With this loss, the unranked Minnesota Golden Gophers are 6-4. They are now 4-3 in the Big Ten at this very moment. Now taking a look at what's going on with the 22nd ranked team in the nation, the San Diego State Aztecs hosted the unranked Nevada Wolfpack. San Diego State will pull off a 23-21 win after they outscored Nevada 10-7 in the first half. Nevada outscored San Diego State 14-3 in the second half. This game would come down to a game-winning field goal that San Diego State made with about 81 seconds left on the clock in order to keep their one-loss season at that. And with this win, they were led by their starting quarterback, Lucas Johnson. He threw for 176 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for 14 yards. That would be 190 total yards of offense. San Diego State's leading carrier was Greg Bell. He had 16 carries for 104 yards. Their second leading carrier, Chance Bell, had 12 carries for 55 yards and a touchdown, as he also had 4 yards through the air. That's 59 total yards of offense with this touchdown. And the San Diego State leading tackler was Cameron Thomas. He had 10 tackles on the day as he had 2 sacks. They were 2 of the team's 3 that they had on the day. With this win, the 22nd ranked San Diego State Aztecs are 9-1 as they are now officially 5-1 in the Mountain West. With this loss, the unranked Nevada Wolfpack are now officially 7-3. They are now 4-2 in the Mountain West as things stand. Taking a look at what's going on with the 23rd ranked team in the nation, UT San Antonio hosted unranked Southern Miss, and in this matchup, the Roadrunners would pull up a 27-17 win to stay undefeated. And looking at how they won this one 27-17, as both teams were tied at 10 at half. The UTSA Roadrunners were able to outscore Southern Miss 17-7 in the second half as they shut Southern Miss out 10-0 in the fourth quarter. That would be the difference. UTSA was led by their starting quarterback, Frank Harris. He would end up throwing for 227 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He also ran the ball for 54 yards. That would end up combining for 281 total yards of offense. Their leading carrier, Sincere McCormick, had 19 carries for 90 yards and a touchdown. He also had 7 receiving yards. That would be 97 total yards of offense for him. Their leading receiver, Joshua Cephas, had 8 receptions for 106 yards as he had a receiving touchdown for himself. Jamal Ligon had 9 tackles leading the team. And then Antonio Parks would have the team's only interception. With this win, the UTSA Roadrunners are now 10-0. They are now 6-0 in Conference USA. And of course, with this loss, the unranked Southern Miss Golden Eagles are now 1-9. They are now 0-6 in Conference USA. Taking a look at what's going on with the 24th ranked team in the nation, the Utah Utes faced off against the Arizona Wildcats in Arizona. Utah was able to pull off a 38-29 win. Utah outscored Arizona 21-17 in the first half before outscoring them 17-12 in the second. The Utah Utes were led by their starting quarterback, Cameron Rising. He threw for 294 yards and 2 touchdowns. He would also run for 22 yards and an additional touchdown. That would be 316 total yards of offense to go along with his 3 touchdowns. Their leading carrier, TJ Pledger, had 25 carries for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 1 reception for 43 yards. That would end up combining for 162 total yards of offense. Their second leading receiver, Brant Kuithe, sorry if I butchered the name, he finished with 4 receptions for 56 yards and a touchdown. Their leading tackler, Junior Tafuna, finished with 9 tackles as he had a sack for himself and a tackle for loss. And with this win, the 24th ranked Utah Utes are 7-3. They are now 6-1 in the Pac-12, and with this loss, the unranked Arizona Wildcats are now 1-9. They are now officially 1-6 in the Pac-12. Last but not least, taking a look at what's going on with the 25th ranked team in the nation, the Arkansas Razorbacks went to Baton Rouge to take on the unranked LSU Tigers, and Arkansas was able to pull off a 16-13 win on the road, as they were able to win this game in overtime. LSU outscored Arkansas 10-3 in the first half. Arkansas outscored LSU 10-3 in the second half, and of course, that's how overtime works. Arkansas was able to win it on a field goal. Big win in Death Valley. The 25th ranked Razorbacks were led by their starting quarterback, KJ Jefferson. He threw for 142 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for 41 yards. That will be 183 total yards of offense for him specifically. And on the defensive side of the ball, their leading tackler was Bumper Poole. He would finish with 13 tackles on the day. Grant Morgan had 11. Hayden Henry would finish with 10 of them. Greg Brooks Jr. would finish with a tackle. He also had 2 fumble recoveries. Monteric Brown and Miles Slusher would finish with the team's 2 interceptions. And with this win, the 25th ranked Arkansas Razorbacks are now 7-3. They are 3-3 in the SEC. And with this loss, the LSU Tigers are 4-6. They are now 2-5 in the SEC at this very moment. That is how college football is shaping up following the 11th week of action in the collegiate football season. College football will pick up on Friday the 19th as San Diego State faces off against UNLV. But taking a look now at what's going on with college basketball before we get into the pros, starting with the top-ranked basketball team in the nation, the Gonzaga Bulldogs hosted the 5th-ranked Texas Longhorns. And in this matchup, the Bulldogs will pull off an 86-74 win as they outscored Texas by 20 in the first half. Texas outscored Gonzaga by 8 in the second half, but it wouldn't be enough. The 5th-ranked Texas Longhorns were led in scoring by their starting forward, their senior Timmy Allen out of Arizona. He would finish with 18 points and 6 rebounds in 31 minutes. He shot 7 for 12 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and 2 for 3 from the foul line. The first-ranked Gonzaga Bulldogs were led in scoring by their starting forward, Drew Timme, their junior out of Texas. Drew Timme would go on to finish with 37 points, 7 rebounds as well. He did all this in 38 minutes as he shot 15 for 19 from the field and 7 for 9 from the foul line. With this win, the first-ranked Gonzaga Bulldogs are 2-0. And then, of course, with this loss, the 5th-ranked Texas Longhorns are now 1-1. Taking a look now at what's going on with the 6th-ranked team in the nation, the Michigan Wolverines hosted the unranked Prairie View A&M Panthers. Michigan was able to pull off a 77-49 win. They would win this game by 28 after they outscored Prairie View by 19 in the first half and by 9 in the second. The Wolverines were led in scoring by their starting guard, Eli Brooks, their senior out of Pennsylvania. Eli Brooks would go on to finish with 15 points in 29 minutes as he shot 14 for 19 he shot 4 for 7 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the 6th-ranked Michigan Wolverines are 2-0 to start their season, and with this loss, unranked Prairie View A&M is 0-3 to start their season. Taking a look at what's going on with the 9th-ranked team in the nation, the Duke Blue Devils hosted the unranked Campbell Fighting Camels, and Duke was able to pull off a 67-56 win, outscoring Campbell by 4 in the first half and by 7 in the second half. The Blue Devils were led in scoring by their freshman starting forward, Paolo Banchero. He finished with 18 points and 7 rebounds alongside 5 turnovers in 33 minutes. He shot 7 for 11 from the field and 4 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the 9th-ranked Duke Blue Devils are 3-0. With this loss, unranked Campbell is 2-1 to start their season. Looking at the 12th-ranked team in the nation, the Memphis Tigers hosted the unranked North Carolina Central Eagles. Memphis was able to pull off a 90-51 win on their home court, outscoring North Carolina Central by 15 in the first half, and they outscored them by 24 in the second half. The Tigers were led in scoring by their elite freshman starting forward, Imani Bates. Bates finished with 15 points and 4 rebounds in 27 minutes as he shot 3 for 7 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and 7 for 9 from the foul line. With this win, the 12th-ranked Memphis Tigers are 2-0. With this loss, the unranked North Carolina Central Eagles are now 0-2 at this point in the year. Taking a look at what's going on with the 16th-ranked basketball team in the nation, the Arkansas Razorbacks hosted unranked Gardner-Webb as the run-in Bulldogs tried to give Arkansas a run for their money. Arkansas would end up beating Gardner-Webb by 17 as they outscored Gardner-Webb by 16 in the first half and by 1 in the second. The Razorbacks were led in scoring by their starting forward, Connor Vanover, their junior out of Little Rock, Arkansas from within the state. He would go on to finish with 19 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 blocks in 17 minutes. He shot 7 for 12 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and he made all 4 of his free throw attempts on the night. Now taking a look at what's going on with the 21st ranked team in the nation, the Maryland Terrapins hosted the unranked Vermont Catamounts. Maryland would pull off a 68-57 win after Vermont took a 4-point lead by halftime. Maryland would outscore Vermont by 15 points in the second half in order to pick up this 11-point win. The 21st ranked Terps were led in scoring by their starting guard, Eric Ayala, their senior out of Wilmington, Delaware. He would be tied in scoring for the team high with Fats Russells, their 5'11 senior out of Philly. Starting with Ayala would finish with 22 points in 19 minutes as he shot 7 for 18 from the field and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. Fats Russell would finish with 22 points and 5 rebounds in 31 minutes as he shot 7 for 16 from the field. And with this win, the 21st ranked Maryland Terrapins are 3-0 to start their season. And with this loss, the unranked Vermont Catamounts are 1-1 to start theirs. Last but not least, taking a look at what's going on with the 24th ranked team in the nation, the UConn Huskies hosted the unranked Coppin State Eagles. UConn will pull off an 89-54 win as they outscored Coppin State by 18 in the first half and by 17 in the second half. The UConn Huskies were led in scoring by their starting forward, their sophomore out of Mali, Adama Sanogo. Sanogo will go on to finish with 20 points and 9 rebounds in 29 minutes as he shot 10 for 13 from the field on the night. With this win, the UConn Huskies are now 2-0 to start their season. With this loss, the Coppin State Eagles are now 0-4. That is what college basketball is looking like following yesterday's matchups. And of course, considering today is Sunday, there wasn't much going on with the NFL. But of course, tomorrow I'll get back with more NFL as that season is developing. And then last but not least, taking a look at what's been going on in the NBA. Starting off in Utah, the Utah Jazz hosted the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat would end up beating Utah 111-105. The difference for this one would be the third quarter, where the Heat outscored the Jazz by 16 points. The Utah Jazz on the losing end were led in scoring by their starting small forward, Bojan Bogdanovic. Bojan finished with 26 points and 6 rebounds in 28 minutes as he shot 8 for 19 from the field, 6 for 13 from 3, and he would shoot a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. Off the bench, their point guard Jordan Clarkson finished with 25 points in 2 steals in 32 minutes as the reigning sixth man of the year shot 8 for 17 from the field and a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. Their elite starting shooting guard out of Louisville, Donovan Mitchell, finished with 22 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and 5 steals in 37 minutes as he shot 8 for 19 from the field, 3 for 10 from 3, and 3 for 5 from the foul line. Their elite starting French center, Rudy Gobert, would finish with 14 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 steals in 35 minutes as he shot 5 for 7 from the field and 4 for 5 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Miami Heat were led in scoring by their starting guard, Tyler Hero. He finished with 27 points and 8 rebounds in 37 minutes. He shot 10 for 23 from the field and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. Their starting wing on the other side, Duncan Robinson, would finish with 22 points in 34 minutes as he shot 8 for 14 from the field and 6 for 11 from 3. Their elite starting point guard, Kyle Lowry, finished with 21 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals alongside 5 turnovers in 35 minutes. Lowry shot 8 for 14 from the field, 2 for 6 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. And the Heat's elite starting center, Bam Adebayo, would finish with 13 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists in 37 minutes. He shot 4 for 11 from the field and a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the Miami Heat are now 8-5, and with this loss, the Utah Jazz are also 8-5. Jumping out to Indianapolis, the Indiana Pacers hosted the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Pacers would end up beating the Sixers 118-113. The Pacers outscored the Sixers by 10 points in the first half, which would be the difference in this matchup. The Sixers were led in scoring by their starting power forward out of Tennessee, Tobias Harris. He finished with 32 points and 11 rebounds in 35 minutes. He shot 10 for 22 from the field, 3 for 4 from 3, and 9 for 10 from the foul line. Their starting point guard, Tyrese Maxey, would finish with 24 points in their 43 minutes as he shot 10 for 15 from the field, 3 for 4 from 3, and he would end up making his only free throw attempt on the night. On the winning end of this matchup, the Indiana Pacers were led in scoring by their small forward from the bench, Justin Holiday. Justin Holiday would go on to finish with 27 points in 28 minutes. He shot 9 for 11 from the field, 6 for 8 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, before I get into that, the Pacers starting center, Miles Turner, finished with 20 points and 6 blocks as well as 2 steals in 35 minutes. He shot 8 for 12 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and 2 for 3 from the foul line. With this win, the Indiana Pacers are now 6-8. With this loss, the Philadelphia 76ers are now 8-6 at this point of the season. Jumping out to Orlando, the city where the bubble took place, the Orlando Magic hosted the Washington Wizards. The Wizards were able to beat the Magic 104-92 as they were able to outscore Orlando by 13 points in the first half and by 10 points in the third. The Magic would be led in scoring by their starting point guard, Cole Anthony. He finished with 22 points and 8 assists in 34 minutes. He shot 4 for 16 from the field, and he shot 11 for 12 from the foul line. The Washington Wizards were led in scoring by their starting point guard, Spencer Dinwiddie. He finished with 23 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists in 31 minutes. He shot 10 for 18 from the field. Their center off the bench, former Sixth Man of the Year, Montrezl Harrell, finished with 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 7 assists in 21 minutes. He shot 9 for 13 from the field and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the Washington Wizards are now 9-3, and with this loss, the Orlando Magic are now 3-10 at this point in the season. Taking a look at what's going on in New Orleans, the Pelicans hosted the Memphis Grizzlies, and the Pelicans were able to pull off a 112-101 win at home as they outscored the Grizzlies by 13 points in the first and a combined 18 for the first half. The Memphis Grizzlies were led in scoring by their small forward out of Oregon, Dillon Brooks. He finished with 23 points and 5 rebounds in 31 minutes. He shot 8 for 18 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. Their elite starting point guard, Ja Morant, would finish with 22 points, 9 rebounds, and 10 assists in 37 minutes. He shot 8 for 17 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and he shot a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. The New Orleans Pelicans were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He would go on to finish with 21 points and 2 steals as he did all this in 26 minutes. He shot 7 for 14 from the field and 5 for 6 from the foul line. And their elite starting small forward out of Duke, Brandon Ingram, would finish with 19 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists in 29 minutes. He shot 7 for 17 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the New Orleans Pelicans are now 2-12, and with this loss, the Memphis Grizzlies are now 6-7 at this point in the year. Taking a look now at what's going on north of the border, the Toronto Raptors hosted the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons would end up beating the Raptors 127-121. They will go on to outscore the Raptors by 8 points in the fourth quarter to overcome their 2-point deficit to win this game. The Raptors were led in scoring by their elite starting power forward, Pascal Siakam. He finished with 25 points, 12 rebounds, and 7 assists as he fouled out in 35 minutes. Siakam shot 9 for 14 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3, and 5 for 9 from the foul line. Their starting shooting guard out of Duke, Gary Trent Jr., would finish with 23 points and 3 steals in 38 minutes. He shot 8 for 16 from the field, 4 for 10 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. For the Detroit Pistons, their leading scorer was Jeremy Grant. Their small forward finished with 24 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists in 36 minutes. He shot 8 for 16 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. Their starting center, Isaiah Stewart, finished with 20 points and 2 blocks in 32 minutes as he shot 9 for 11 from the field and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the Detroit Pistons are now 3-9. And with this loss, the Toronto Raptors are now 7-7 at this moment of the season. Taking a look at what's going on in Cleveland, the Cleveland Cavaliers hosted the Boston Celtics. They were able to pull off a 91-89 win at home as their fourth quarter would see them outscoring the Celtics by 14 points to win this game barely by 2. The Boston Celtics were led in scoring by their German point guard, Dennis Schroeder. He finished with 28 points in 35 minutes. He shot 10 for 19 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. Their elite starting small forward, Jason Tatum out of Duke, finished with 21 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists alongside 6 turnovers in 35 minutes. He shot 8 for 22 from the field, 1 for 8 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. The Cleveland Cavaliers on the winning end of this matchup were led in scoring by their starting point guard, Darius Garland. He finished with 22 points and 6 assists in 36 minutes. He shot 7 for 15 from the field and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Cleveland Cavaliers are now 9-5, and with this loss, the Boston Celtics are 6-7. Last but not least, taking a look at what's going on in the Staples Center, the Los Angeles Clippers hosted the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Clippers were able to pull off a 129-102 win as they outscored the Minnesota Timberwolves by 19 in the second quarter, 25 in the first half to win this game by 27, essentially. The Timberwolves on the losing end were led by their former number 1 overall pick, small forward Anthony Edwards. He finished with 21 points and 11 rebounds in 34 minutes. He shot 9 for 22 from the field and 1 for 2 from the foul line. Their elite starting point guard, D'Angelo Russell, would finish with 15 points, 2 rebounds, and 8 assists in 30 minutes. He shot 6 for 16 from the field and 3 for 7 from 3. Their elite starting center, Karl Anthony Towns, would finish with 8 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals in 31 minutes, as he shot 3 for 11 from the field and 2 for 3 from the foul line. The Los Angeles Clippers were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard, Paul George. He finished with 23 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists in 27 minutes. He shot 10 for 17 from the field and 3 for 5 from 3. Their starting point guard, Reggie Jackson, finished with 21 points in 27 minutes as he shot 9 for 16 from the field and 3 for 8 from 3. With this win, the Los Angeles Clippers are now 8-4, and with this loss, the Minnesota Timberwolves are now 4-8 as you flip those records in reverse. Last but not least, taking a look at what's going on with soccer teams that are in their international break, starting with the European ones. Belgium hosted Estonia and was able to pick up a 3-1 win in their World Cup qualifier matchup, their last one coming from Torgan Hazard. France hosted Kazakhstan and was able to pull off an 8-0 win, as 4 goals will come from their elite French forward for PSG, Kylian Mbappe. 2 goals will go to their elite striker that currently plays for Real Madrid, Karim Benzema. They will get a goal from their elite attacking forward who now plays for Atletico Madrid, Antoine Griezmann. The Netherlands were able to draw with Montenegro 2-2, as both of the Netherlands goals came from Memphis Depay. Taking a look really quickly at what's going on outside. There's not much going on outside of that, but with that said, I want to thank everyone for listening to all 50 minutes of this piece. I want to thank the ESPN, college football, college basketball, NCAA, NBA, and NFL websites for giving me what I needed for my episode. I want to thank everyone for listening, and I, of course, apologize for any of the names that I butchered, because I do plan on getting them right gradually as time goes on. And with that said, I want to thank everyone once again. I hope all is well. Once all of today's exhibitions and matchups are done, I will come back tomorrow and for another episode of The Elite once all of today's exhibitions are done. Thanks for listening to this piece. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with more tomorrow. Peace out.